The more I've analyzed the whole concept of suffering, human suffering, the roots of it, how it manifests, I start looking at the equations that I see contained within the makeup of the human. First and foremost, we're energy-based beings. Put the diodes on the head, you see the EEG, the electrical energy, the electrical activity of the brain. Put the diodes on the heart, you see the EKG. So we are emitters of energy. We are psychological beings. We have emotion. And when stimulated into a negative state of emotion, for whatever reason that may be, most of us emit negative energy. Anger and all that other stuff emits negative energy as well. Our minds are compartmentalized in such a way as we don't have direct access to the subconscious mind, which is what runs about 95% of the show. Our awareness is myopic. Our brains are limited in such a way that we use 10 to 12% of it on average, and I guess 18 to 20% at the highest levels of human intelligence. The inward journey, by all appearances, seems to be firewalled off for most people. DNA within the human that medical science says is junk DNA is, in my opinion, more likely to have been just simply shut off. Because the aspects of the capabilities that that DNA may give us would make us far more advanced beings than we actually are. So our engineers turned it all off. The genome, the human genome, has, medical science seems to have recorded apparently 3,000 to 4,000 genetic flaws, or no. Yeah, something to the effect of these genetic flaws have to do with imperfect connections of the genomes or something. Like it was shoddy work. Like it wasn't done at an atomic level. As if we were created to be slaves. A slave race. We live very short lifetimes. And then, depending on the school of philosophy you subscribe to, we're either reincarnated or what I've come to affectionately refer to as recycled. We are like a version of aquaponics, where the fish poop in the water, the poop feeds the plants provide vegetables, the fish provide meat, the fish procreate, the vegetables obviously are sustainable, and it's just a self-sufficient or self-contained source of food that kind of just feeds itself or takes care of itself. It's kind of what we are. We have kids, we raise them, we die, they have kids, they raise them, they die, and on and on and on. Continuously perpetuating the human species, yes, but also continuing to perpetuate the cycle. It really does seem as if we were designed for this. And when you look at the human psyche, it's programmed. We're born ignorant, therefore we must be indoctrinated to some degree. And I don't mean that from a negative connotation or context, like literally our parents and teach us things and we don't critically think about it, we just accept it. I think this ignorance, I know this ignorance is the absolute root of most of what plagues humans. When the human is not raised in a healthy environment, when the human is not raised by both of his parents, when the human has profoundly traumatic childhoods, abuses, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, sexual, whatever those abuses may be, these severely traumatize the mind. They They create many, many, many barriers in the mind from these traumas. We don't have an innate mechanism to heal from these things when we are children at all. We have to learn these tools. We have to learn these strategies. And when you traumatize the human at a very young age, that could literally stunt that human for the rest of its life. That could keep that human from growing and developing, almost ensuring that it will largely be in a low negative state of being and emitting negative energy. I tell you, the more I think about this, and I've talked to plenty of friends who know me well enough that I can have these conversations with, and they don't think I'm batshit crazy. And I've talked to a few people who think that it's plausible. Maybe there might be something to that, but they don't fully subscribe. And then I've talked to others that are like, that seems to make more sense than anything else, considering the outcomes for the human species as a whole for, 5,000 or 6,000 years of recorded history? When you think about us as a species, suffering, we know suffering. Most people who have studied anything spiritual, religion, or any of that stuff, suffering, 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 suffering. And so few people have been able to put together the dots. Or they refuse to put together the dots because it's too much to bear. And I understand how it could be. That it's like when you realize and you accept that this is all suffering, that humans' experience is largely suffering, that should be your ding, 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 hello, McFly moment. Considering the equations that exist within the human, the limitations, the barriers, I tell you, it seems to only lend itself to the fact that this is what we were created to be. This is what we were created to experience. This was the purpose of the human design. And I say that from a place of, it's too easy to manipulate the human into a negative state. It's too easy for that to happen. That's what I'm talking about. That's one of the things. It's so easy to manipulate the human mind into a negative, fear-based, low-level energy state. It is so easy to do that, especially when the human is ignorant or young and has no control over any of the information that's coming at him or her. And I say that because suffering, death by murder and war and genocide and all that horrible stuff, this has been an all-pervasive thing throughout the course of known recorded human history. Suffering has been a part of this throughout all of known recorded human history up to today. There are forces at work on the human species. And when you say that to people, they think that you're weird. They may not think you're crazy, but they'll damn sure think you're weird, that you're way out there. And well, quite frankly, maybe I am. I'm way out there, out of the box. And it took me getting out of the box completely, in as much as I could, and roaming around outside of the box, asking bigger questions, wondering why, and allowing myself to use the faculties that I was given, or that I have: logic, deductive reasoning, intuition, feeling my way through certain things. I can't come up with a more plausible explanation. I can't come up with a more plausible scenario that fits, in my opinion, almost so perfectly into this open puzzle piece place, if you will. And it's made my mind begin to spin even more on why. would we be created in the way that we are. We do not live long enough really to turn on any DNA. We do not live long enough in so many respects to really do much. Some of the lessons that we learn in this life can take decades, even an entire lifetime. Well, if you were to write down all of these factors, another one. We are emotional beings, and while emotions can be a very beautiful thing, when you have a being that's sentient and ignorant, and someone else or something else that knows about that psychology, that knows how to manipulate that mind, that knows how to traumatize that mind, that knows how to control that mind, you are at their mercy. When you are growing up and you are subjected to people who are toxic and horrible, you are at their mercy. When you are young and you do not have control of the information that's being put into your mind, when you do not have control of the environment that you are in, when you do not have control of the people that you are around, regardless of how they get there, you are at the mercy of the awareness and consciousness and intellect in some levels of those around you. And in many cases, this is our parents. And when you look at the world and realize for so long, children are having children. And children, I mean, as young as 16 to 21, 22, even 23. And I don't mean a 23-year-old's a child, but what I mean is you don't know life yet. You haven't matured yet. You are still figuring things out. You're still going through your rebellious stage maybe, or you're getting your sowing your oats stage maybe, or whatever phase it is, until you fully mature. And how many people that hear my voice that may have had kids in their 20s, early 20s, can look back on their 20s and look back at maybe some experiences that took place in their lives that profoundly affected their kids because, the parents weren't fully grown up, fully matured, or any of these things. I think it's an epidemic of kids that don't have any clue of how to be a good parent, how to raise, how to nurture, how to cultivate our own offspring. You combine that with the toxicity of the world that we see around us, being hit on multiple fronts with negative stuff, with fear stuff, things that poison and toxify the mind, fear, and all this stuff. We are just so manipulated as a human species, and some of that manipulation comes from our own kind, meaning other humans, and some of that comes from forces that are beyond this world. And for anybody that hears me say that thinks I'm nutso or crazy, not like Looney Tunes, but just, frickin' weird or whatever, you just got to ask yourself, if you believe in God, if you believe in devils and demons and imps and angels and archangels and all that stuff, you believe in other beings. And if you believe that those beings that I just rattled off and us is all that exists out there in the vastness of the electromagnetic spectrum and the universe, then I'd suggest you have some more opening of your mind to do and more getting out of the box to do and considering what else is possible, and maybe some deep entheogenic journeys to tear the veil off of your eyes, to show you at least another piece, a bigger piece than you currently see of the grander spectrum of life that lives out there. DMT, magic mushrooms, in sufficient doses. I'm not suggesting that you do this over and over. I'm just saying if you want a glimpse into the other worlds, if you want a glimpse into the fact that there are other entities out there, if you want a glimpse into that world, if you want to see them with your own, the eye of your own consciousness, while you're having an experience when you are consciously aware of the fact that you are not in your body, it will begin to change your perspective on the fact that there are things out there that are working on us. Since we have such a narrow band of awareness, it really fits. It makes sense. We are so ignorant, it's not even funny. We have a very narrow myopic view, five senses view. Some say we have the sixth sense, and when you start thinking about the vastness of the electromagnetic spectrum that we live in, and then the myopicness of the light frequency that we live in, we are only seeing and experience such a small smidgen of what's actually all around us. I firmly believe that there are beings that do feed off of energy that are outside of our spectrum of sight, sound, and experience, that absolutely have the ability to stimulate us, that have the absolute ability to put thoughts into our mind to confuse us. And how I can quantify that is, whoever may hear my voice, whether you're the most balanced being or batshit crazy psycho, at any point in between, I'm sure you've had a thought go through your head that would be considered to be some of the most horrible shit that you've ever thought of. And if you analyze that and you realize, this is not me, this is not how I think, this is not a part of me, I would never do these things, it lends itself to the high plausibility that there is something out there that does have the ability to enter into the frequency spectrum that our minds operate in and put things in there. Things that will twist the mind, pervert the mind, make us not feel good, make us angry, whatever. Any of the above and everything else that I'm not thinking of right now or mentioning, that could really affect the human mind, the human psyche. And when you start analyzing how fragile the human psyche is, I mean, there are people out there who are obviously stronger than others psychologically, but you can break just about anybody. I mean, hell, governments have figured that out. That's why they do torture. Because, soldiers become really freaking tough. And you want to get information out of these guys who are tough as nails, you have to break them. Most everybody's breakable. And it just lends itself to the fact that our psyches are fragile. They can be broken. And when you start, how do I say this? When this process begins by forces outside of this world, or by evil, wicked men or women, or by ignorant parents, or by ever, starts working on the child's mind, no wonder the world is what it is. No wonder we do to each other what we do. No wonder. We have been perverted as a species on levels that are so hard to quantify, on levels that are just so grotesque. Because as I've said before, nowhere else in nature do we see any other species doing to its own kind what it is that we do. And if there is a species out there that kills, it kills just so that there are monkeys you can see that have done other things, but 98% of the frickin', when they kill, they do it because they have to survive, to eat. They're not out there brutalizing, there's a method to the madness, if you will. We don't see that with humans. I mean, it's just amazing, but not in a great way. When you start to contemplate these things in the process of trying to understand what the hell is going on? What the hell is this? Why is this? And why are we all put here to experience this? You've got to look beyond the veil of what you've been told. You've even got to look beyond the veil of what you think and what you believe. Unless, of course, you're somebody that's done lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of deep dives on this stuff. And, have concluded what you've concluded of your own free will. But I still say that we should even challenge ourselves in what we believe, because we know not necessarily where we got much of what we believe. And begin to ask bigger questions about these things. Begin to recognize that there is a profound purpose in the suffering of the human, that is not one that is there to serve the human. Does the human learn from suffering? Oh yeah, absolutely. There's lessons to be learned from suffering. Absolutely. And they are some of the hardest lessons that the human will ever learn. But there's so many other ways to learn. I wonder why suffering is the one that we seem to experience the most as a species on this planet for so long. Whether it's, our own self-imposed suffering or suffering that's imposed on us by way of evil, wicked people. So much of this experience in life, to me, doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And I suppose that it takes a life of struggle and pain and suffering to drive a critically thinking mind that took quite a while to evolve into the degree of critically thinking mind that, for instance, I have, to begin to make it ask bigger questions and to consider things that other people would not even be willing to consider as possible. And when you get to the point where you can do that, I assure you that the things that you will find that will fit these empty holes in the puzzle will blow your mind. And the only way you'll really know it is to discover it for yourself. You can hear me say it, and there might be something in you that's like, man, there's something to that. There might be something to that. And that sounds great, or okay. But until you go on your own journey of self-discovery, or your own an exploration of these things, and launch your mind into places it has never gone to find the answers. Because I assure you, 90% of the answers that any of us have been handed to us by other people that may not actually know. They just handed us an answer that seemed to make sense to them. They may very well be in a very low state of consciousness and handing us an answer. And then we've gone our whole lives using that as a basis from which we believe, think, interpret the world. It's like, wow. When you start looking at all these things, and you start looking at cause and effect, and you start looking at this stuff, it's like, I could swear I could swear we were created for this. And I do not believe that it was from a place of benevolence. And I mean, you can hear my tone right now. I'm not animated. I'm not pissed. I'm not upset about it. I'm not anything. I'm just, this is where I'm at. This is what I believe. This is what I think. This seems most plausible. I don't know. Maybe some people escape this trap. I think the monks and the gurus and the yogis, they get to the point where they are, and don't get me wrong, it's not like some of the yogis and gurus and monks haven't been corrupted themselves. I've heard of stories of gurus who always sleep with their people and take advantage. I get it, but the ones that are the real ones, they're very centered, they're very stable, they're very non-emotional, unless it's joy. They won't let themselves be knocked off center. They won't let themselves embrace the negative. They're just so centered, and they found peace and joy amidst this sea of suffering. And if nothing else, they've created an environment in their life where these beings aren't feeding off of them. They can't. Because these humans I'm referring to have evolved their minds, their beings, their psyches to such an advanced state that, and they're so aware of what it is that they're fighting against, so to speak, that they have mastered their minds. Yeah. This is what I believe. After 46 years of life, a Christian walk, hell and back a few times, school of hard knocks, etc., and etc., etc., and all the things that I've done, seen, experienced, blah, blah, blah. This is what I think is the most plausible scenario. This, in my opinion, is the puzzle piece that fits the most perfectly into the open hole of the puzzle. I'm still looking for more answers. I'm still trying to understand more. They say these things are not for the human to know. They're beyond human knowing. And I think that there are things that might be beyond human knowing, but not because we're incapable. I think just because it hasn't been explained to us or shown to us. We're intelligent enough that we can probably grasp a lot of the things that people believe are not for us to know or beyond our knowing. So anyway, I've just been through some of the most stressful things in the last couple of days that I've ever experienced, that have displaced me and induced a level of stress into my life that is just, wow. And I'm having a moment through all this of breathing, and I'm kind of in the exhale as I'm talking to you through this, and just kind of thinking, trying to understand, what's this for? And I look for the linings, the silver linings. I look for the love and the light. I look for all the things I hear about that I've not really experienced very much. I guess it's out there. I'd like to find it. I tell you, sometimes when you go through these periods of time in life where you're just getting your ass handed to you, it can really change your perspective on what's valuable in this world. And I tell you, when you find good people, hold on to them for dear life, but as loosely as possible, because nobody wants to be suffocated. Just recognize when you have beautiful people in your life and stay loyal to them. I think that advice is as valuable as gold, because I've learned in the last couple of days how valuable people are. The human bond, that value. The human, look, I don't know, it's hard to explain this part, and I might be going off the path of the message I was trying to put forth here. I've just had a bit of a shift in my perspective on what I'm grateful for. And I'll be honest with you, on a lot of levels, I'm not even grateful for life. I'm not, because my life has been such a suffering experience. It's been full with so much negative and hurt and pain. But I tell you, there's a few people out there in this world that I am so profoundly grateful for that I will never have the words to quantify exactly how grateful for them that I am. Take it easy, everybody.